If you grew up thinking that financial struggle was just a normal part of life, and that's all you've ever known, I want to challenge that belief today. And it's not necessarily a reflection on you, but it's more this generational curse that's been built over time that keeps you in the same way of thinking. When you're in the same way of thinking, you get the same results as everyone else has already got. Today, I'm going to show you how to break free from this generational curse to affect not only your financial future, but the generations to come. If you're new to the channel, my name's Lewis. Thanks for being here. I've somehow managed to accumulate 11 million views and 90,000 subscribers in the space of cryptocurrency. But what I will say is that cryptocurrency in my life personally has made me the person to break the curse generationally when we're talking about wealth and finances in my whole family. I have managed to break free, and I'm just at the beginning of my journey. So I'm not coming at this from a guru perspective. I am coming at this as more of like a guide. I've started to do this, and I've really started to do it. I've started to break free. And I just want to share some of the lessons I've learned in doing that as I reflect back on the things that I've done. And we'll sprinkle in some scientific studies that have been done on this topic, and we'll also touch on some biblical principles as well, and how all of these kind of fit together. So when you leave this video, you'll actually have actionable things that you can be doing to impact not just your life financially, but the generations to come, and finally break that curse. So I think first we have to kind of identify this curse. Like, what is the curse? Let's draw attention to it. Oftentimes, if we kind of shine a spotlight on the uncomfortable things, it all gets out there in the open now, and we can then start to take action to tackle it. I think that's the situation we're in right now for you. If you're in that generational curse and you want to change this, you've got to shine the light on it, look at it, it's ugly, it's terrible. But once you've done it, you can start to move forward and fix the issues. You can't change what has happened in the past, but you can actually shatter it all down and rebuild it yourself. It's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. It's a complete mentality shift from the way you've been brought up. But we have to acknowledge it. What has been made up by the generations before you? What is kind of a ridiculous thought? You know, there's two types of this. There's the important things that have happened in the past that are within us that help us. So for example, if our ancestors were being chased down by lions all the time, we have a natural instinct within us that is kind of like, oh, we need to run away from a lion. That's helpful. It's very helpful. But there are things like, oh, money is a scarce resource and we're always short on money. Money's hard to get. We have to work very hard for money. Is that true? Does everyone have to work hard for money? Does everyone have to be in this scarce mindset? Is money scarcity real? And you discover that there's two types. There are real things and things that have just been made up. These are stories that we've told ourselves. And so shining a light on all of these things will allow us to sort them properly, kind of store them away in the right parts of our brains, and we can give attention to the right parts as well. Now, this is actually a concept called epigenetics. And epigenetics is where previous happenings, things that have happened, traumatic, positive, anything in the past has happened, that actually manifests within our genes, within you and me. We have things going on in us that are chemical reactions, biological reactions to previous stimuli that have happened. And it determines what we do in our day-to-day life. So if one of those epigenetic traits has been scarcity of money, or money's really difficult to get, I'm going to grow up that way, and my actions are going to be shaped according to that worldview. I'm going to get a job and think I have to work hard at this job, or I have to work long hours at this job. I have to sacrifice time with family for this job to get money, because that's how money is made. But there's tons of people out there who don't have that wiring, and they have a completely different view of the world, and ultimately have varying levels of success financially. Fascinating, isn't it? Like it's completely the stories you tell yourself impact the choices you make in life, and the choices you make in life result in who you are. If you don't like who you are financially, or in many other ways, you have to shine a light at the stories you've been told and break those stories, make new stories. So I guess there's one big question to ask yourself. Who benefits from you telling yourself that you have financial struggle? Who benefits? Absolutely no one. There is no benefit to that. Who benefits if you tell yourself that you are free of financial struggle and you're destined for profound wealth? Who benefits from that? Well, you do. The decisions you make from that moment on, if you believe that something is now, like you're wealthy now, or you start acting in a certain way that brings you to that point anyway. So if you make steady, small shifts in that mindset, ultimately you will arrive at the destination. And I've just certainly discovered this myself. When I was in a position where I was thinking about how, $10 or £10 was a good chunk of money, 100 was an even bigger chunk of money, and this was kind of eliciting an emotional response, like, oh my goodness, yeah, $100 extra, $1,000 extra, oh my goodness. Like my mind was almost capped at what my dad used to make as an annual salary at his peak in his career. He worked very hard for that job all the time, like very difficult job, very stressful job. And I always viewed my capacity for earning as similar to what his capacity for earning was. And by no means did my family ever struggle. That's not the point of this. But there was a cap, there was a ceiling on what I believed was possible to make. And so all my decisions in my life result in that being my cap, because I can't look outside of that. Now, I have managed to stop thinking in those ways. If we're thinking about the average salary in the UK is something like £36,000, I think, maybe it's a little bit less. But when you're thinking about that kind of salary, you're also thinking in smaller units of scale. So these units of scale, for example, if I think in hundreds of pounds, the maximum I will earn is hundreds of pounds, because I've set that limit for myself. I'll tell you a story in golf. I was a very consistent golf player, so I would shoot 1 over par, level par, 1 under par, basically every time I went out, and I would never really go below that. I did occasionally go below that, but I rarely went really that much above it either. And it wasn't my skill level, because I played with the likes of Tyrrell Hatton, who's one of the best players in the world right now. And from a skill perspective, there's not much difference. We hit it the same distance. He was kind of quite accurate and he hit the ball quite close, but that's not the point. Our skill level was very similar, but there was something different. His mentality was very different. He thought in different numbers. His thought process was, if I make a birdie, I'm going to make another birdie and another birdie. And I'll relate this back to finances if you're not a golf fan at this point. But where my mind was, if I make a birdie, I've now got to protect that. His mindset was, I made a birdie, let's make another one, another one, another one. And therefore, his limit for his score was significantly higher or lower, depending on how you're looking at it, than mine. And therefore, my golf game was limited by how I viewed my limits. His limits were different, and therefore he wasn't restricted by those limits. And he got used to shooting scores that were indicative of becoming a massively successful player. He gave himself the mindset required to get where he was trying to go. We were both aiming for the same location. He got there because his mind was set on these bigger goals. And so where I was thinking about tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars, that was like my capacity for thinking about money. I now think about hundreds of thousands, $500,000 chunks, $1 million chunks. I think in that kind of money scale now. And therefore the results that I get back are reflective of the scale by which I look at money, the units of scale that I look at money. So that's one of those key things that you can do to start to break the mold of this financial curse that you've received. And let's go back to that scarcity mindset. That's where you believe there's never enough. And if you believe that there's never enough, you're always more likely to make more short-term decisions. If you're in the world of finance or investing or crypto, short-term decisions are typically more emotional decisions. And we know that when emotion comes into investing, you make mistakes because your body can't actually tell what's the right thing to do at that time. You need a plan of action, you need to be level-headed, and typically being more long-term viewing is a great way to reduce those emotions. So here's a little test for you. If you have that scarcity mindset and you think there's never enough, I want you to never say that to yourself ever again. Never say that. It's the most, I also really don't like the word can't. I can't do that. I tried. Those kinds of words. If you just remove them from your vocabulary and only use the opposite, I can, I did, there is more than enough. All of these words change the way you live your life. I can't emphasize it enough. If you say these words to yourself, you will have more. And that small change in just changing your vocabulary will lead to a massive difference in a year's time. This won't flip the switch immediately. You won't become rich overnight. Like that's not a thing. But what can happen is these incremental changes will make a massive impact on you financially and ultimately be one of those key components, one of the pieces of straw that breaks the camel's back to break that curse that's been over you and your family for so long. And a lot of that feeds into what I'm calling the financial frequency. I've touched on this in previous points, but it's that thought process about money, the units of scale that you're thinking about money, the thought processes you're putting behind it, the words that you're saying, the vocabulary you're using about money. All of these kind of start to align your financial frequency. And if you create a financial frequency, let's say one of those elements of frequency is that I never say there's not enough. I always say there's more than enough. And I always talk about money in millions of dollars instead of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. I'm creating a frequency, a financial frequency at that level. I know plenty people, maybe not personally yet, but I know plenty of people. A couple of them I do know personally. These people who are operating with billions of dollars, they are on an even higher level of financial frequency. They're thinking in billions of dollars. Some of them may even be thinking in trillions. They're thinking about not just this week, they're thinking about the next 10 years. There's a difference. There's a financial frequency that they're putting out. So I want you to kind of, you can't just go straight for $1 billion. You can't just go straight there. You've got to build yourself up like you build a muscle. You have to build up your ability to emit those frequencies and do it over time. So you've got to set smaller goals. You can have an ultimate goal of being a billionaire. Not that anyone needs to be a billionaire, but you can be if you want. But let's set the milestone for, let's just try and think in hundreds of thousands from now on. It changes your decisions drastically. I'm telling you from personal experience, it changes the way you view things and the way you live your life drastically. If someone says, oh, come on, let's go and do this thing and it's going to earn you $50 today. Fine, that's $50, but $50 to the old you, the scarcity mindset you, would have jumped on that because $50, it's really hard to come by $50. You would have grabbed at that opportunity. But if you start looking at life and getting opportunities and filtering them out so that you only do opportunities that meet your new financial frequency, your decisions will lead you to situations where you end up having to make those decisions. You just got to try it. You just got to try it. I've done this so many times, on this channel, just to be very, very kind of honest here. I get brand deals. The brand deals come in, they come through in the email, and, I'll get opportunities to, can we do an integration on your channel for 60 seconds and we'll pay you X amount. And that X amount used to be a lot of money. Like, it used to be a lot of money for me to think about just for talking for 60 seconds. But as I have changed my financial frequency, I now look at this and think that these numbers aren't enough to get me out of bed. And it's not that they're not. I will always be thankful for the money, but my frequency determines my decisions. Only brand deals that come through that trigger multiple parts of this new financial frequency that I have will make it through. And therefore I become more desirable because I am a more scarce resource. People want to work with me more because I say no so much. Do you see how I get more opportunities that way? And the same thing happens for you. It doesn't have to be a YouTuber. You don't have to talk about brand deals. It could be anything. The universe, if you will attract more opportunities to you to fit your financial frequency. That's what I'm trying to say. So I want to emphasize something. This is really just a pattern. And we're going to break that pattern today. I'm going to give you a few actionable steps. I've tried to give you some actionable things in this video already. One of those things we can do is to discuss how easy it is to change from different states. Right now, you are in your current state, your current self. Your desired self, the person you want to be, is just another state of being. That's all it is. And I want to show you how simple and trivial that whole thing is. You're thinking, well, how can I go from who I am now to who I really want to be? That's a massive thing to do. It's not. You've complicated it, and you're emitting a frequency of complication, and you're almost like you're not worthy enough, or you're not able to do these things. These are words you don't want to say, sentences you don't want to say to yourself. You only want to be looking at yourself in this positive way. You want to be the type of person who understands you can do anything. Things do come abundantly to me. That's the type of mentality you want. So just as I'm in this room, right? It's really hot in this room, by the way. It's like really hot. But outside, it's raining and it's a little bit chilly. When I go from this room to outside, I change state. I change state from being in the hot state to the cold state. What happened in between those two states? An action, right? The action was I left this room and went outside. I took action to change my state. Humans go from state to state. We go from young to old. We go from tired to rested. We go from hungry to satiated. States are just different states of being. That's all they are. We can accept age, but we can go in and out of different states. This is no different. That's how trivial it is. You can go from who you are to who you want to become. It's just a state of being change. But there's something in between. And that thing in between is action. So the current state that you're in creates a stimuli. It's a stimulus. The environment you're in is a stimulus. A stimulus is a thing that happens that causes you to create an action. So this room is hot. The stimulus is it's hot. The action to change that state is to leave the room to somewhere colder. And then I result in I'm now cold. And in order to change the state, the environment of being outside is cold. That creates an action. I want to be warm, which means I create an action to come inside to be warm. And I change my state again. It's the same thing here. You go from I think money is scarce to I think money is abundant. What is in between? There's an action. The action you take is just telling yourself different things. Remove the stories you've been telling yourself and change those stories. Rewrite the stories and you'll rewrite the generational curse that has loomed over the family for so long. So here's the big thing to do. Here's the thing that you got to action today. So get a pen and paper. I'll wait for you for a little bit. Actually, I can't wait. You can pause the video. Come back when you got a pen and paper. Now that you've got a pen and paper, I want you to write down on the topic of money all of the things that you believe, the stories you've been telling yourself. Okay, so you'll go down that list. You might say, money is hard to get. Money has to be worked for. Money, in order to get money, I have to sacrifice X. Write this list in full. I would strive to, I'm not even going to exaggerate here. Sit down for 2 hours and try and figure this out, right? Write down all of these limiting beliefs. And for each one, once you've done that, go through each one and say, why do I believe this, right? Go down each one. Why do I believe this? And write the answer. Why you believe it. So, if I think money is scarce, why do I believe that? Well, my parents worked very hard for a very long time for very little financial gain. They always told me it was scarce, right? They always told me money was hard. I always had to save money, right? So you write all these down. You go down that list. Then third, I want you to write down, who does it benefit to think this way? The answer across all of those should be no one. It should be no one across the board. But go through the experiment and go through this exercise in full. And then what I want you to write on a different page is to now essentially copy all of those initial phrases that you use. Money is scarce. Money is difficult to come by. And write the opposite. And what you should end up with is a full sheet of this new vibrational frequency that you're now emitting, because these are the phrases that you are telling yourself. Reflect on this piece of paper, reflect on that list, this new financial frequency list, over and over and over, not just today, but tomorrow, the day after. Do it continually until you believe that that is the state of the world. And I'm not telling you to do this because I'm some guru. I've actually done this. I have actually done this. I convinced myself over the period, it took me probably about 3 months to completely shift like how I view myself and how I view money, and I think it's that at that moment that the financial curse was broken. My eyes completely opened to a new way of being, and guess what happened once I opened up my mind to this new way of being? Without giving numbers, because I don't think this is the area for that. Let's think about this. Yeah, I've tripled what I make every month. Tripled. And if you're looking at from when I was kind of working in a job that I didn't like, I was on very, very little wage. I make multitudes more every month than I did per year in that job. The difference was not my abilities, my knowledge, my understanding. It wasn't anything else except the way I started to view money changed, and I became the person who represents that new financial frequency. And now I've got financial frequencies that I'm putting out that are even higher, and I know I will get there. So I say all of that. It's very exciting for me to make these videos because I've gone through this. I've actually done this. I urge you to try to take these steps and do them. One of those things that people tell themselves is that getting rich in crypto or in their investing is kind of just luck. Like it's just hopefully going to happen. If you tell yourself something's hopefully going to happen continually, over and over and over, who benefits from that? You see? No one benefits from that. You're gambling with your investments at that point. Now, we've talked about in previous videos, putting action in place, taking action rather than being passive, being proactive. And to me, that is part of that new financial frequency. Once you've got a new financial frequency, you now have to apply some effort there to change your state. Remember, there's an action. The stimulus is the current situation. The stimulus tells you to take action to change your state. That's what this is. The action, I believe, is diligence, an intense amount of work for a short period of time on something that's actually going to impact you financially. That's the whole purpose of why I've created the BlockFlow program. There's my own methodology that I've put together. You won't find it anywhere else online. I think it's the most profoundly impactful program in crypto in the entire world because it incorporates this mindset shift required. This is a little snippet of what we talk about in the program, but there's 28 hours of content like this in there that have completely shifted how I think about money and how much money I've made and how much money I stand to make in the future as the bull run comes as well. And everyone who's joined that program, there's dozens of students in there. I think at this moment of recording this, there's 61 students in there who are all going to have that same experience in this coming bull run. They're going to make some money. They're going to hold for the long term. They're taking action. They're changing their financial frequency. And it's having some massive impacts on the individuals involved. So if you're, between the ages of 40, 65, that kind of age group, you've got some life behind you, but the prospect of limited life ahead of you is kind of forcing you to get motivated and get something done, a plan of action for the future, because this generational curse has to end with you. So you need to be sensible, you need to be diligent, you need to do your hard work, you need to make calculated investments. And for that, you can't be passive. You've got to take action. This program is the epitome of what it takes to have that plan of action and effort required to do so. So if you think you might be eligible, typically I look for people in the region of kind of $50,000 in their portfolio plus, typically on a pretty decent salary. And that's just because you stand to do a lot of impact this bull run if you meet those criteria. You can really break this financial curse, not just mentally, but also in reality, like in your portfolio value, if you have a sufficient amount of crypto already. So if you think you might be eligible, we'd love to talk with you on a free strategy call, me or someone in my team, to see basically if it's a fit for you. If it's not a fit for you, I don't want you to join this program, because if it's not going to get you the result, I don't want you to spend money on something that's not going to get you the result. This is for serious investors who really want to make a plan to break that generational curse. With all of that said, thank you for listening for all this time. Stay emotionless. I'll see you in the next one.